Carol O'Hanley is the co-owner and office manager of Exit Realty PEI, which she owns with her husband and award-winning agent, Steve Yostin. Carol has been in the real estate industry since 2006, first working as a realtor. She has her certificate in adult education, a certificate from UPEI in the new management series, and is the graduate of the EMBA program at UPEI. I'm sure this translates well into the operation of her brokerage, and her work experience was on full display as the instructor for my PEI Real Estate Association pre-licensing course that I completed in the fall of 2022. In this course, Carol went above and beyond in offering additional supplementary lessons, guest speakers, and panelists, remarkably fast marking and feedback on all the quizzes, assignments, and examinations, and concise and focused lessons that drove home the points we needed to know while maintaining an atmosphere of trust and kindness. I feel so privileged to have had her as my instructor. As a bit of an aside, one thing people may not realize about real estate agents and salespeople is the amount of training and ongoing professional development required to obtain and keep your license. The pre-licensing course, for example, focuses on your duties as a realtor, professional conduct, the Real Estate Trading Act, agency relationships, appraisal theory, as well as many of the practical day-to-day responsibilities of realtors, like listing agreements, purchase and sale agreements, land regulations, and much more. Realtors are required to do ongoing professional development to keep their licensing, including an annual code of ethics course. Carol has a passion for her community. Her and Exit Realty PEI are involved in helping numerous local organizations and charities. She has already taught me a lot about integrity and trust in real estate dealings, establishing clear boundaries of disclosure and privacy, and navigating these issues clearly with your clients and customers. As I start my journey as a realtor, I wanted to take this opportunity to bring in Carol and have a conversation about all things PEI real estate. Welcome, Carol O'Hanley.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to talk with you one-on-one as opposed to 20-on-1.
Exactly. Yeah, I hear you.
That's awesome. First question is, what should people be looking for in the realtor they choose to represent them?
So that could differ, between people. The thing I think that I would focus on if I was personally looking for a realtor would be the relationship that I have with the realtor. I would want to have good communication with them. I would probably also look at, I would investigate them. So if you're a new realtor, it's good to get on social media so that people can find you.
Yes.
If you came to me wanting to be my realtor and then I was to investigate you and I couldn't find you anywhere, then that might persuade me to look elsewhere for you. But the big thing I think is communication. I would want a good relationship with them. One thing that I'm really picky about are salesy people. And I don't know how to describe that, but it's a certain persona that people give off, that they're salesy.
Yeah, that is a funny thing because obviously in real estate, it's sales, right?
Yes.
Right. But it's like you have a fiduciary duty to your client, and you have to operate in their best interest. And so, just you can tell the difference when you're having a relationship with someone. But ultimately, say if you're listing your property, you want that person to get the best price for that and for them to be really good at it. So you want them to be a good salesperson.
Yes.
But I guess maybe just to follow up on that, what would be the red flags for you, and what does that mean, like salesy versus like someone who's a good, say, salesperson?
Yeah, it would be the vibe that they give off, I guess. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes when I think salesy, I think maybe not genuine.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So that's the feeling that I would have. And I don't know that you need to be salesy in order to sell a property.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I think you can market it smartly and in a clever way, or think outside the box and still not be salesy. Salesy to me is kind of pushy.
Yeah.
And
they're just trying to get the transaction through regardless of whether it's good for you, and just trying to make a buck.
And they remove the relationship part of it. And I think that you can feel that. And I think it's something that it's hard to describe, but it's something that you feel with someone.
Yeah.
So I think that would be something that I would definitely be looking for.
And that's like a gut check thing too.
Exactly. And it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Like some personality types mesh with others and some don't. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So that's why I think it's personal. And I think it's a really good thing to remember as a new agent that not everyone is going to mesh with your personality.
Yeah,
no
definitely.
matter what you do. You can have all the marketing things that you want, but if you sit across from them at the table and you don't have that connection, then they're probably not going to use you.
Yeah.
And also it can be different if it's a couple looking for a realtor. Sometimes the wife might feel it with the realtor and sometimes the man will not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's another thing to remember. So I think it's important for new realtors to know that not everyone's going to use you. And there's going to be a different reason for that.
Yeah.
So do all of the things that you can do that you can have control over, but then there's things that you can't control.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which is like probably one of those really important things is like not get down on yourself when you're going, as in anything in life. It's like you get, often when you get started on a journey and you have a few stumbles on the road, which is bound to happen, it's really easy to take it to heart and be like, okay, I'm on the wrong journey or I'm on the wrong path, when really it's like, oh no, this is just part of the ride, part of the adventure.
And I'm sure that if you spoke to really successful realtors, they had stumbled along the path. You know, they were rejected or clients were taken away from them or something happened to them.
Yeah.
And they just dug in and kept going.
Yeah.
I think it's a very common thread in the real estate industry, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
yeah, totally.
It's reality.
Yeah. I mean, it can go both ways too. I'm sure there's times where it's like, you know what, this client, great person, not the right client for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to launch in the next question. Okay. And maybe you kind of touched on this in the last one, but what do top performing realtors do differently?
So from my experience and from my observation, top producers, they do a couple of things. And you can always tell, and as a new realtor, you might be able to tell this yourself. Top producers are really good at getting back to people, whether it be realtors, whether it be lawyers, whether it be clients. They know how to do that. And they don't leave people hanging. They have really good communication skills. So that's one thing that they do for
That's
sure.
so big, isn't it?
It's huge.
Follow up and just not being afraid of answering the phone or replying to text promptly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you hear it, like I hear it from the students that come into my class who have been buyers and sellers themselves.
Oh, definitely.
And a lot of people comment on like, yeah, I had a realtor and they never, I'd call them. I couldn't get a hold of them for like, it's a really simple thing to do to get back to people.
Yeah.
So
why do you think people have blockages around that?
There's a couple of reasons probably. I think a lot of times that people are scared of this business.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a blockage there that maybe they don't really want the business.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They think they do, but they don't want to
take on that responsibility.
Exactly. If they answer the phone, somebody's going to want something from them.
And they have to be that person that they are presenting to be. They have to be confident and they have to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they have to be able to answer the questions that come their way because they're going to be coming. And if you don't know, and that's where, if you don't know, you can call your broker, you can call, someone who is a specialist in that area and answer those questions. So again, it comes back to that communication piece and that being like, okay, if I can't solve this, who can?
Right. And not being scared to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out.
Yeah. That's so much better than someone just giving you kind of like some kind of
pretending
answer,
they know. Because you
get
caught in that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's never a good thing to do.
Oh, yeah,
Never.
Definitely. But I think it does happen.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And that's one thing actually as an instructor, as a facilitator, that's one of the things that scared me the most when I first started teaching the course was that, oh my God, somebody's going to ask me a question and I'm not going to know the answer and they're going to think I'm stupid. They're going to wonder why I'm teaching this if I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So that was a really big learning curve for me, especially my first time around teaching this real estate course.
Right. When was that?
I first started teaching it, I think it must be close to 10 years ago now.
Oh, okay.
It's like
cool.
at least 9.
Yeah, nice.
And I remember when they first asked me, when I was first asked to teach it, and I was like, but why do they think I can do that? Like, what would make someone think that I could do that?
Right. This is the narrative you had?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was completely shocked. And I remember the night before my first class, I had like chest pains.
Really?
I was terrified.
Wow.
I was terrified.
Huh.
But I have to say that if it wasn't for Steve, my husband, Steve Yostin, who, excuse me, has been in real estate for over 20 years now, I think. If it wasn't for that wealth of knowledge that I had, pretty much every night when I went home, I would be like, I have some questions.
Right, yeah. Can you please take a few extra minutes?
He would give me the answers, and then I would go back to the class. And I mean, sometimes he didn't know, but he would direct me where to go. So any knowledge that I impart on anyone else, I would have received from Steve.
Right. Oh, interesting. That's nice.
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge. Like,
and he does a lot of the training within Exit Realty.
He does. Right? He does. He's very generous with his knowledge, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was one thing that I was scared of when I first started teaching, was saying I don't know. But I quickly learned how. And I remember one of my students from that first course, at the end of the course, he said, I think that you actually had more homework than any of us, because I would take all the questions and go home and find the answers and then come back with them. So
not to mention all the marking and grading.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then preparing all the, like, how much of this stuff, the course materials like this, I know you put together supplemental materials. Like, there'd be a lot of effort.
And I kind of build on it. So your course, I think, was either the 4th or 5th one this time around. It's changed a little bit since I taught it 9 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas 9 years ago, it was 80 hours in class.
Oh, wow.
Like face to face.
Okay, yeah.
But I've added to what was built, and just kind of, added things that I thought real estate agents should know in the day to day.
Well, there's even like I downloaded the course materials, and there's even I remember when you did the presentation on doing a listing presentation with a prospective client. Like, this is just really useful, practical stuff that was not in the that was not required of you to present. So thank you for that.
and that was actually new. I had something. What I presented to your class was it was built on a little bit every time, but this presentation was my favorite one, and that was my favorite class when I did that with your. Oh,
nice!
Class.
Yeah, it was great. Very useful.
Yeah.
If someone knows they aren't in their forever home, but aren't yet ready to sell, when should they reach out to a realtor?
I don't think it's ever a bad time to reach out to a realtor and just let the realtor know, this isn't my forever home and I am going to sell sometime down the road. Realtors meet with clients all the time that are not going to sell tomorrow, the next day, whatever.
Yeah.
But again, if you want someone to sell your house, you're going to need somebody that you have a good relationship with.
Right.
So if you don't know a realtor already, it's never too early to start that process.
It's good to have, and also to get a feel, is this someone I'm comfortable with before you're actually in the process of listing.
Exactly. And realtors also know that that sellers often meet with more than one realtor.
Yeah.
So, if you need to do that, then that's something that you should do. But it's just good to know what the process is as a seller if you don't already know. Yeah. If you've sold multiple homes, then there's probably no need to do that. Maybe you could just talk to the realtor about the market or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you don't know the process, I think that it's never too early to take realtors in, talk to them and ask them what their process is, because it's different for every realtor.
Yeah.
And just find somebody that you're comfortable with, and they can maybe tell you what steps you need to take.
Yeah.
As far as, if there's anything that you need to do within your house.
Well, exactly.
Or financially, where you should be, or they can find out what you're interested in. Because normally when people decide they want to sell, sometimes it can move very quickly. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Especially if they find something they like.
Right. And then they're like, okay, I want to get this while it's on the market and get in there.
Exactly. Yeah. It's almost like if you put it out to the universe, okay, universe, I'm ready to sell.
Yeah.
And then something comes along.
Isn't that weird how that works? Weird. It is weird.
Yeah, weird.
Just piggybacking off that question, how do you find people normally handle it? Like when they're a seller and they want to move somewhere else, like, do they list their property first? Do they buy the other property first? I mean, I'm sure it goes every different way, but that flow, like that to me, as someone who's new to this and hasn't gone through that process, is something that I would really benefit from hearing from a voice of experience with, because I'm just thinking about how to navigate that with people.
And it does totally depend on the person and their circumstance. Some people can bridge their mortgage so that they can actually buy another house without selling the one that they have. Do you know what I mean? So it's not dependent on that. Some people like to find a house first because they want somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Or some people don't. Maybe they have somewhere to go. Maybe they have a cottage where they can go for a couple of months while they're looking. Some people like to, maybe they think it'll take a long time to sell their house, so they want to work on that and have a long closing and then look. So it's...
Or maybe like sell and buy a camper and cruise around for a while they think about what they want to buy. Exactly. Like, I guess there's all different
it's
situations.
Totally,
yeah.
Now me personally, we've sold two homes, and we had found a home that we wanted first and then put ours on the market.
And then was the offer... Sorry, excuse me if this is too personal. You don't have to answer, obviously. But
was it contingent?
Was it contingent? Was it conditional?
I think that it was, but then we were able to remove it, and we were able to remove it because we priced accordingly. Like,
okay,
do you know what I mean? So,
okay.
So we did make it contingent, knowing that we could bridge.
Yeah.
But we were able to remove that condition, and everything went. I think in both instances that was the case.
And then did the sale of your past property like go as planned? I mean, obviously you're in the business and Steve and everything. So
yeah. So the first one that we sold, and we had found another house that we wanted to buy. So the first one that we sold, we set a price on it, and then it wasn't selling, so we took it down a couple of different times. Do you know what I mean? So we were okay with that, and we knew that we wanted this house, so we did that accordingly.
Did you rent it or anything, or did you want to just keep it nice? Because that would be a challenge, if you did want to sell it, having renters in there obviously changes the dynamic dramatically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially if the renters intend to stay longer. If it's like they're like, oh, we only need it for a couple months, and we're gonna take really good care of it. And
kind of throws a wrench into things.
Yeah.
But I mean, it depends on your circumstance. Some people do need to rent, but
and in some cases that would be a really good route to go.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, just sort of piggybacking off this, in what ways can a realtor help current homeowners or past clients if they aren't about to sell? So you mentioned maybe helping them figure out what they would need to do to sell it, but what about like providing market updates or comparative market analysis or these things? Is that something that you think makes sense for realtors to be doing for people even when they're not in that process of
again, it depends on the person. So some people do like to keep an eye on the market. Do you know what I mean? So they want those market updates. Other people maybe not necessarily.
Yeah, and they might not want to sell for the rest of their life, and it's like I don't want that dangling in front of my
exactly. I know a common question that realtors will get from maybe their past clients is they might reach out and say, David, I have a 3-bedroom. I'm thinking about making it a 2-bedroom. Right. One of the bedrooms really big. How would that affect the resale value?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of times, and the answers that I'm giving mostly are answers that I might hear Steve give his clients, because I personally don't have any clients.
Right. Yeah.
Or I might hear another realtor give a client. And a common answer to that question would be, if you're planning on living in the house for, the next foreseeable future, then just make it the way you want to make it. Just make it the way
you want to make it. Yeah.
And we'll deal with it. If you ever put it on the market again. If making it into 2 bedrooms is going to make your life better and make you happier, then for all, go and do that.
Yeah.
If you're going to sell it next year, then if you make it a 2-bedroom, then it might make selling it a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But
if
you're going to stay there for a long time, make it the way you want to make it.
Make it the way you want it. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I guess that is also this thing about like, really, this is a conversation, you know, and you want to have that, like like as a realtor, it's like, what does this person really want with their life, you know? And not everything is about dollars and cents too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so what this is very like similar type of question, but what can homeowners do to get the best price for their home?
Just keep it, make sure that you maintain it well, which you want to do anyway, if it's your home. It's always nice. Like if you're going to do something drastic in your home, then that's okay. Like for example, let's say your kid wants to paint their room purple.
Right. Yeah.
And again, that's fine if they want to live there.
Yeah.
And that makes them happy.
Totally.
But when you go to sell your home again, you might want to paint it a neutral color. Like
totally.
Paint is pretty simple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something that, you can add value to it. For example, generators are really
they're adding value.
That's especially after Fiona.
If people are thinking about that, oh, this is a generator. That's that extra
heat
layer
pumps
of comfort.
are great. Like if that's something, those things are something that, especially when you get rebates on heat pumps. So those are just things that you can add for your own benefit, and then that's going to make it more attractive as well whenever you go to sell. So just things like that would probably be helpful.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. One of those, you talked about, the purple wall and being, when it comes time to paint it, painting it a neutral color. One of the themes that I've been finding coming up in these conversations, especially with people who deal with a lot of listings, is this idea of people walking in and them not necessarily wanting to buy your home and sort of take off where you left off, but start their own journey there. So if they have more of a blank canvas, it's easier to start to imagine their journey and making it their own. And they might want that, what was that purple wall may end up being some kind of rainbow colored wall or something, but it is theirs.
Yes,
And so, that allows their own imagination to run wild, which is such a nice, that is such an enjoyable part of the journey when you are a buyer and when you can imagine that. Yeah.
And some people can see past purple walls and stuff like that. And, a lot of people can, but it's just easier to help them along with that. And I think that's what people are meaning when they, say take down all the pictures and, make it a blank slate. It's just easier for your buyers. So if you can do that, and if you maybe your house is very marketable, and it's going to sell anyway, and you don't have to repaint.
Yeah, right. Or maybe you're in a rush and there's only so much time.
Exactly.
And then it's a matter of, how do we present this the best way we can with it as it is. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, okay. This is maybe a very specific question, and this would have been like almost automatic if it was priced right in the market we're coming out of. But right now, I'm not even sure if this is fully possible, but how can a realtor create a buying frenzy for a listing?
I think the only way that they could do that, and it's not something that I would advise, is to underprice it, unless the vendor wants to.
Yeah.
Because really, that's the bottom line. It's price is often the bottom line on anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you can create a buying frenzy. I think as a realtor, I think your job is to make sure that everyone who should see this property sees it, whether that be marketing, on social media or making it look good on realtor.ca. But aside from that, there's really, I think that if I'm a buyer and I'm looking, then if you make it look good on realtor.ca, I'm going to be looking there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to find it. Do you know what I mean? How to make it more attractive to me really is, all the things that we talked about to make it presentable and stuff. But really the buying frenzy, I think the only thing you could do would be to price it low, and that's not always in the vendor's best interest.
Yeah, that's true. I also think there'd be ways of sort of figuring out maybe what in certain special circumstances, what opportunities are available, because maybe say, given maybe the lot size, it could be repurposed and it's zoned for what, could be something, like there's a better, higher and best case use for this than what it is. And then you maybe go a little bit outside of the normal sphere and start talking to investors or start talking to construction companies and finding, because if you have multiple people wanting to buy it, regardless of what it is, then you got to think there's higher likelihood that there could be that happening. But
right.
Yeah. But again, I feel like there's also like that kind of going into it, that first look that people have. I do find like when something is like priced really aggressively and really high, there is that tendency for it to be on the market. And even if the price reduces, it's like, I'll drive by that house and like, oh, I already looked at that one.
Exactly.
And you may not realize that, oh, it's actually 10% less than it was not that long ago. And it's in my price range and it wasn't before, but it's just out of the.
Yeah. And that's kind of where a realtor comes in.
Yeah.
Handy. A realtor should be watching that market and saying, I remember, David, you really like this house. Now it's in your price range. Maybe we should take another look.
Right. Yeah. And you might be able to find those treasures.
Yes.
By looking by looking at stuff that's been on the market longer.
Yeah. And the more time that you spend with a buyer as a realtor, and I mean, you don't want to spend like months with them,
life,
but the more time you spend with them, you know what they want.
Yeah.
I know that I had buyers at one point when I had buyers back in the day. And I showed them quite a few homes and they were getting really tired. And they said at the end of it, you know what? We're done. We're not looking anymore.
Yeah.
But then a house came on that I knew it was exactly what they were looking for because I had spent so much time with them. And I called them and said, let's just look at this one more. And then I'll leave you alone, but let's just look at this one.
Yeah.
And I took them. It was exactly what they wanted. They bought it. They still live there like 10 years later and love it.
I'm sure they're thanking you for that. That's awesome.
But that's something that you learn. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's very rewarding when you do something like that because they were done. They were totally done.
Oh,
and I was just like, no, just one more.
That's a big shift.
Yeah.
What about finding properties that are not currently on the MLS and say, one technique that I heard recently, and I was, discussing this with another person on the podcast as well, but if there's a listing that's not on the market that maybe it's an expired or maybe it's just they've been there for a while and it's just like in the neighborhood that your buyer wants, you think that, it could be a reasonable deal for the seller. What about calling up the realtor who sold it to that person and saying, hey, do you want to reach out to them about this? Like, is that something you see happening? I mean, probably the tendency would be to go right to the person, but do you have any thoughts about that? Like, because that realtor has that existing relationship with them. So say if I'm working with someone, I'm going on to, the back end of MLS and looking through, and there's all these properties that sold 5-10 years ago and, or like 3 to 5 years ago or something. And they like really match what my buyer client is looking for.
Yeah.
I feel like there is opportunity and it's probably a lot more work, but to like go in and be like, yeah, I'm going to reach out to those people.
Yeah. And I've seen it done both ways. I've seen people reach out to the realtor.
Yeah.
And do it that way or reach out to the person that lives there themselves.
Yeah.
Either way is fine. I guess it might depend on whether or not you had a relationship with the realtor.
Right.
If you didn't know them from a hole in the ground, and that unfortunately that's a lot now because there's so many new realtors.
Right, exactly.
But if it was somebody that you had a good relationship with and that you did deals with in the past and you felt comfortable doing that and
because you don't know if that person is going to do a good job.
Exactly.
That's
if you don't know them from Adam, then you don't know that they're going to go and even ask those people. They might say, yeah, I'll call.
I'll do that, and they don't get around to it, or they don't have the initiative, or they're afraid of making that phone call, or don't know how to ask. Hey, have you had any thoughts of selling your home? There's this person who might be interested in it.
Exactly.
You need someone who's actually going to do that. Yeah.
Another good reason why it's really important, and I know I talk about this in class, is why it's important to build relationships with other realtors.
Yeah.
That's an important part of the business because you're going to be working with, especially if they're realtors that buy and sell a lot, you're probably going to be working with them multiple times. So it's really important to build those relationships with those realtors.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a different side of it, because my thinking was, oh, it makes so much sense to go to the realtor because they have that existing relationship of trust. But without knowing that person or their reputation or anything, it's really hard to know whether or not that
and
is
maybe
the
they don't
case,
have a
best
good
case
relationship
scenario.
with who's living in that house.
Yeah.
Like maybe it wasn't a good experience.
All right. Yeah.
So you don't know that either.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for exploring that with me. Okay. Let's talk about the market, interest rates. Like, this is the big thing that most people want to talk about when I'm out there in the community. Everybody wants to know what's happening in the market. So in this higher interest rate environment, at least than we've had in the last decade, what are the biggest opportunities for, and you can answer any of these or one or all or whatever you'd like, for buyers, for sellers, for renters, or investors? Like, what do you see as the opportunity there right now, or say over the next little while in your mind?
I don't know that I'm in the industry enough to answer that. I'm kind of on the outskirts of the industry.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Managing and owning,
because I don't have any clients myself. So what I experience is just observation.
Yeah. And I'm sure you hear talk around the office and stuff of the current market conditions, but
I'm not at the office that much.
Okay.
Let's be honest. Since I started teaching, I've kind of taken a step away from the office.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So I don't hear a lot of conversations.
Oh, that's kind of nice that you don't have to be necessarily keeping abreast of that at not working with current clients.
Yeah. It's a different, I think I have a different perspective being out of the office and being away from all of this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know that there is a lot of discussion on the higher interest rates.
Yeah. Affects buying power and all that. And then
it's going to severely limit a lot of people on what they can buy. Especially, I feel bad for first-time buyers who are just getting into the market now with these interest rates. So I think that it will change the dynamics. I don't know that I can speak to exactly how. The good thing is, though, that people are always going to need to buy and sell.
Yeah.
So it just means that it's going to be a different kind of market for any agents that are coming into it now, as opposed to all of the fun that was being had over the last couple of years.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be different. But I also think it's going to be good, because I think that the really good agents are going to get through this. Yeah. And they're going to learn different skills than the agents that got into it a couple of years ago. Right. They're going to have to catch up and learn some new skills as well.
Right. And if they're resting on their laurels, then
I think it will it will all come out in the wash.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Definitely a time of change. You're anticipating.
I think so. But I think change is good.
Yeah.
I think change is good.
Yeah, and definitely it does seem like people, the kind of multiple offers where everybody's dropping the condition of inspection and stuff, where it's like, and people don't necessarily know what they're getting into. That's a little, it's a little bit of a dangerous game in a way that was sort of people were having to play to some extent. I mean, not necessarily actually dangerous, although potentially, I guess, like asbestos or like different serious issues.
And I think real estate agents, it made them nervous. Yeah. In that kind of market. I think that the people outside looking in were thinking, oh, they're making like hordes of money. And people did make money. Like, that's true. But I think it was also really stressful because like as a real estate agent, like even pricing homes the way that they were being priced, but it was hard not to, because that's what the market was telling people to price their homes at.
Of course, yeah.
But all of those multiple offers, people think that's a great position to be in, but I don't know that it actually is. Multiple offers are very stressful for both the seller and the buyer. And taking conditions out, like that's stressful as well. So I don't know that was a lot of fun for a lot of real estate agents.
Yeah, right.
So the correction, I think, is maybe welcome.
Yeah. A bit of the volume slows down a little bit. It's a little bit longer time on market, and people are able to kind of think through their decisions a little bit more, make sure they're getting the right place for them, and
exactly
that kind of thing. Yeah, that definitely seems like more balanced, like more just like people can have a lifestyle with that and a little less stress.
Through that crazy market too, like you did need a certain skill set for that as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because to kind of help your people navigate through all of that, especially having buyers that were missing out on offers like all the time.
And they're on their 6th offer and just like, let's make this happen. And then you try and it doesn't go through and they had their heart set on this one. And
so the people that did come out of that, and didn't leave the industry.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a lot. I mean, this industry, there's a lot of turnover.
There is. There's a lot of turnover because it's not for everyone. Yeah. And it's not, and it's hard to tell people what it is until they get into it. Like you can't explain what it is until people are actually in it.
Yeah. And there is that like day to day, like, that just all those details that need to be managed. It's like, the deposit needs to get there by that time. And we have to make sure that we can get get access to this place at the right moment for the viewing and coordinating all of that. Like, there's only so many clients a person could be working with and do a really good job of. And I think and then you may spend, weeks or, doing all of this and it's just, it falls apart. Nothing comes through, and
but you get experience.
You get experience, yeah, for sure, yeah. It's interesting, yeah. Okay, this one I feel like you'll have an answer to, and or at least some answer to part of it. What are some common issues you see with realtors who aren't performing at their best? And you can choose any of the following categories: quality of work, sales volume, or reputation. When those like common issues for realtors who aren't maybe doing the best quality of work, maybe aren't getting a lot of sales volume, and maybe the reputation is not the best. What are the causes that you see with that? What issues?
So I think initially when people come into this business, I think it's a real steep learning curve, especially if they're coming from a business that was like a 9-to-5 business, or like a government job where you go into work and people give you a list of things to do and you do them and then you go home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? This is completely different. So I think that people struggle with like self-motivation.
Yep.
Like, where do I start? The structure, the lack of structure is really difficult for people to get their head around. So I think that's really, really hard. I think another thing that really trips people up is the need for a sale to close because they need the paycheck. Right. And a lot of times
especially
do.
Early on, they don't have
exactly
this history of working with these clients where they've proven themselves. And,
and so I think when you focus on the fact that you need the check, that you're focusing less on what's best for your client.
Right.
Yeah.
And we talked about that salesy thing earlier too, where it's like,
but I think that people I don't know that they do that on. I'm not saying that people are bad people because they're desperate because they need money to feed their family. And so I think
that's the incentive structure.
Yeah. And I think that
short term though.
Exactly. But I think that they're maybe doing things like maybe pushing the people forward to close the deal when maybe they shouldn't be because they need the paycheck. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I know that that's a thing.
Yeah.
But I also know that people need direction a lot. And so they struggle with that. So if they go to a brokerage where there's maybe not direction, then they might struggle a little bit. Some people don't need direction. Some people don't need self-motivation. They've got all of that. And so they thrive wherever they go. But then there's other people who maybe need a little bit of structure, guidance, education, or mentoring or what have you. And so they need a certain kind of brokerage.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so especially for people starting out, I'm sure that is a big thing. Like,
yes,
it really is. Like, there is, you learn so much in the course. And even now, I'm not even quite licensed yet. And already in the time between the end of the course and now, where I've been kind of diving into all these like online things like Tom Ferry videos or different stuff like that. Like just like trying.
He's a thing. Yeah.
He's a thing,
he's
right?
He's very aggressive. He's very American.
He's very American. Yeah. It's like and his dad was like Mike Ferry was this guy who was like an expert in telephone sales and stuff. And then so Tom Ferry sort of grew up in this like phone sales culture where it's very much like it's very structured in that way.
Yes.
And but I do think there's a lot of value in someone like that, because he's talking about the different conversations that are having. And so you can kind of read your mind. You're like, oh, wait, they're going to ask about this. I better know how to answer that, or I better be able to be useful in some way. And like you said, you can say, oh, I don't know the answer to that, but I know someone who does. But I'm sort of realizing there's all these other layers of learning involved, and even just a listing. So I'm the first listing that I think I will have is a listing for my parents of a plot of land.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That'll be an easy one, hopefully. Well, sometimes they're not. Sometimes family's not the easy one.
Yeah. But walking onto it, I was realizing my sort of inexperience with this.
Yeah.
So I was trying to find the corners of the property, but only one side of the lot had been, or two sides of the lot had been surveyed recently. And then that particular lot goes a little deeper, but I'm not sure how far down it goes. And so
steep learning curve,
right? Like it's these details that like I'm going to need to know. And I'm going to be, leaning on my broker to go in and say, okay, how do I deal with this situation as I'm getting going, so that if I'm taking someone onto that property, I can be like, here's where it ends.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because you want to know where.
Of course. That'll be one of their first questions.
If it's a plot of land. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I think there's like these things that, experience really does help a lot with, taking on all these different things. And then,
and then it's not just that. It's not just learning all of those things, but then it's learning how to deal with people.
Yeah.
And some people just aren't good at dealing with people. And so that might come into play as well. That could be why they're not succeeding, because maybe what they did before didn't involve people.
Right.
And they were successful in whatever. But then when you bring people into it, because that's the main thing with real estate.
Absolutely. It's helping people, trying to find out what a person wants and help them get it.
Exactly.
And
so
there's
that
difficult
people.
Listening.
Like you're going to run into difficult people in real estate, whether it be the other agent, whether it be, the client that you have or the client that the other agent has. Like, there's going to be difficult people along the way. Mm-hmm. And people struggle with that. They really struggle with how to
personally.
Deal. Exactly.
Yeah. And there's such different communication styles people have. There's some people who you'll walk into a room and be like, oh, you didn't sleep very well last night, eh? You're looking kind of tired. There's other people who will just be, it's like, I have this food ready for you, and you'll just go to your space and create. And and then how do you sort of, maintain a rapport with people and ultimately help them work together with them to figure out what they want.
Exactly. And expectations too can be quite high in this industry, just because people are paying you a lot of money to do what you're doing. Right. Yeah. And so people, rightly so, sometimes expect a lot.
Yeah.
And so that can be a surprise for realtors.
Right. You just think, oh, here we go. Here's the contracts that need signing. Exactly. Let's get those signed. Let's get the price down.
So it's just, there's so many different aspects of the industry. And I think people just are not aware of that and struggle with some of those aspects.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of different things. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess speaking of that, this is maybe a good question to go right on to. Exit Realty PEI offers their realtors additional training and professional development beyond what is offered by the PEI Real Estate Association. Why is this a priority, and how does this help your team's performance? Yeah.
So when Steve and I used to be in business together. Like I was an agent as well, and so we were partners in business. And when we were partners in business, I think we're both, maybe me more so, like chronic learners. I love learning.
Yeah.
But so does Steve as well. And so we really struggled finding something, like finding somewhere to learn. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no education within the brokerage that we were in. There was, but not to a very large extent. And so one of the things that was our primary focus when we bought Exit Realty was that we wanted there to be education. And so right from the get-go, I think we bought it in 2015. That was a huge part of what we wanted to build within the brokerage. And so I'm an educator naturally. So it was something that I enjoyed doing. Steve is a really good teacher as well. Steve would do it more one-on-one in the beginning. And he still does it one-on-one now. But as I stepped away from the brokerage and focused more on actually teaching the course, Steve kind of took it upon himself that he would take over the education, which I think is better because he has all of the experience. Most of the education that I would teach would be knowledge that I would get from Steve and then give to others.
Package it. Yeah.
And I think it's important for especially newer agents. That's what they're dying for. They're dying for training. They're dying for education. But there's also some things that come up in the industry that are new that need to be, that education needs to be then passed on to agents, veteran agents, new agents, all the agents. Of course,
and things are changing all the time.
Exactly. So it just gives them more confidence when they're out into the industry. And it's good for any brokerage to give training because essentially the brokerage is liable for all of the stuff that the agents are doing.
Yeah, because you are the brokerage is the agent there.
Yeah, exactly. So the more they know and the more that they can function well in the community, the better off we are.
Right, of course. Yeah.
So it's a win-win situation. So I think it's important on all levels, and I think that it's really kind of set us apart. Although it's funny because when we first bought the brokerage, there wasn't a lot of training in other brokerages.
Okay,
but there is now, which I think is wonderful.
Oh, it's great.
I think all brokerages need training.
Yeah.
So now when I teach the course, I mean, not that I would have told anyone differently years ago, but when I teach the course, I always say, no matter where you go, like I don't think there's any bad brokerage all over PEI.
Yeah.
So I think wherever you go, you're going to get the support that you need from your broker.
Yeah, we're very lucky that way, I guess.
I really think so.
That's nice. I don't know as many brokers that you do at this point, but yeah, that's cool.
But I think that they've all stepped up, and I think they're all offering some sort of training to their new agents, which I think is great.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about that we didn't cover?
I don't think so. I appreciate all of your kind words about my teaching, and I hope that anyone that's thinking about taking the course or is prepared to take the course will find some comfort in your words, knowing that it's not a scary experience.
Yeah.
I love teaching it. I love teaching it so much. And I love adding to it. And I love the getting to know everyone in the class and sending them out into the industry, hopefully, with a little bit of knowledge.
Well, definitely like there's a lot packed in there.
Yeah, there is.
In the course material itself, but then also your supplemental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to give a shout out to Josh too. Josh Egan, who comes in. Yeah. He's been doing it like since I started doing it. So he did it when I started 9-10 years ago. He's been doing it all through, and he's still there when I come back to do it.
Oh, so, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think what he offers is really important. So shout out to Josh.
That's great. And then is there what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they want to, or to Exit Realty, or to Steve?
You can reach out to me, Carol, at exitrealtypei.com.
Great.
Or if they want to know more about Exit, they can reach out to Steve at exitrealtypei.com.
Great.
And yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Carol.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for listening to Chattel Fixtures PEI Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, David Cyrus MacDonald. If you want to reach out to me for any reason, please visit chattelfixtures.com to find my contact information, show notes, etc. We're currently looking for diverse and interesting guests. If you would like to have a conversation with me, or if there is anyone you would like to hear me speak with, or have an idea for the show, let me know. Get in touch through the website or tweet at me at Chattel Fixtures. We're currently seeking out relevant sponsors with solid reputations, serving customers, particularly in some way related to the PEI real estate market. If that sounds like you, get in touch with me if you want to support great, positive conversations about real estate happening right here in PEI. Visit chattelfixtures.com to learn more. Be sure to subscribe to Chattel Fixtures PEI Real Estate Podcast, and see you in the next episode.